from producing, from keeping eggs. So they prefer to buy them cheaply so that they make more profits. You know, they don't make good profit because the cost being high, they sell it at a lower price, which currently in Thika, which is a poultry hub, a tray of an egg goes for 280. While in some parts, western Nyanza, a tray of an egg is around 320 to 340.
So a tray of eggs is more expensive in Nyanza compared to Thika?
Compared to Thika, because Thika is a poultry hub. In fact, Kiambu County is the country's poultry hub. While in Uganda, the same tray, you can get it at even 200 shillings a tray, or 190. So some people opt to go for the cheapest so that they can make a higher profit. Because if you get it at 200 shillings from Uganda, and then you come to Kenya, even if you remove the cost of transportation, still sell it at 300, you'll get higher profits. So
still, the question is, I mean, Ugandans, of course, they are not big consumers of eggs. Does that explain why they prefer to send their eggs to Kenya? Or is it also a question of the cost of production? Or maybe Ugandan eggs are more nutritious, who knows?
Okay, the main advantage that the Ugandans have is that, one thing, the maize is not their staple food. Their staple food is matoke or plantains. Secondly, fish meal. We use the omena. We call them omena. In Uganda, it's not a staple food. And you see, those are the two major ingredients used to make poultry feeds. So those products being in plenty ensures that the cost goes down. So even the cost of feed in Uganda is cheaper. Like a 50 kg bag of layers mash in Uganda is around 1,900 Kenya shillings to 2,000 Kenya shillings. The same 50 kilograms in Kenya of layers mash, the most expensive company, it goes for around 2,400 per 50 kg. So it all boils down to cost of feeds, which I've already said contributes to 70% of the total cost of production. And then secondly, the housing cost. Yeah.
And when you look, at poultry farming here in Kenya, the government talks big, about, developing this industry. But when you look at the incentives offered to this industry, they are either none, or they are very, very small to be felt. From where you stand or from where you see it, what do you think needs to be done, in order to come to the rescue of this industry?
Okay, first of all, it arises from the culture, the Kenyan culture. Most farmers want to keep the indigenous chicken. And the indigenous chicken gives low production compared to the hybrid layer, or the broiler. You see, like the hybrid layer has a high production. So more people want to eat kienyeji chicken, which matures in around 6 months to 7 months, while a broiler will mature in 6 weeks. So they don't want to eat the broiler meat for fear. I don't know. They say that it has so much antibiotics, so many traces of antibiotics. So the culture, it starts from the culture. We need to come up with. We need people to educate them. And the people to educate them are the extension officers. Yeah, and then there are some other incentives that can be put in place. Seminars, we can carry out seminars. By seminars, we'll be able to educate these farmers so that they will have information. Because most farmers start poultry production or poultry keeping without any knowledge. So you find that even the construction of the house is poorly done. And from there, that's where we get so many diseases. Another thing is that extension officers are very few in the field. You see, even in colleges, in universities, we don't emphasize so much in poultry. We only emphasize in large animals like cattle and maybe sheep, goats, while poultry is the cheapest source of protein, even to the poor person in Kenya. So the government needs to employ extension officers, and even the county government needs to look into this. Like recently in Kisumu County is introducing poultry production, and they are saying they want to produce at least 1 million eggs per day. Yeah, so if other counties can come up with such policies, poultry production can flourish. Yeah.
And of course, you brought a very important point, it's the role of counties, in enhancing poultry farming in this country. It's not just a question of the national government, offering incentives. There is the role that the national, the county governments, can do to encourage more people, to pick up poultry farming. Then comes the other question. When you look at the average age of a poultry farmer, is about 55 to 57 years. How do we ensure, how do we encourage young people, to get into poultry farming?
Okay, you see, now there's been a culture in our young people that everyone wants to go into white-collar job. Everyone wants to go into white-collar job, forgetting that agriculture is the second contributor to the country's GDP. Because poultry sector alone contributes about 1.7% to the GDP of the country. That's around 120 billion Kenya shillings. So if these youth, if the youth can be given funds, you see, if they are, the financial institutions, if they are able to give funds to the youth, I think more youths will get into that business. And also, you see, like loans, financial institutions fear giving out loans because you see, like poultry, they don't want to take it as a collateral, like the structures in the poultry. If they be able to give out loans to the youth, I think more youths will get into that. And also educating them, coming up with the seminars, even at the grassroots level. Yeah.
Good. And because we have to wrap up, then the other question comes. I mean, somebody out there, may be interested, into venturing into poultry farming, but they look at it and they're like, wow, this is big money business. Where do I get even capital, to embark on such a business? How much, on a bare minimum, how much do you need, for you to qualify to be called a poultry farmer?
Okay, when you're starting poultry farming, what I usually advise my clients, or what is usually needed, is that you first of all have to start small. First of all, even before you start small, you first of all have to get education on poultry farming. You have to get an expert who will train you, who will give you the tips on poultry production. And then once you are given the information, you come up with a budget, or the specialist can make a budget for you. So that budget, you'll compare it with the amount of money you have. From there, you can start small. And by small, I mean less than 500 bags.
500 bags.
Yeah. The importance of starting small is that it will cushion you against losses. Because if you start big, you have no knowledge of challenges. You see, now starting small will enable you to learn about the market dynamics. You'll also learn about the market, how it works, and challenges like diseases, which are there. So the first time you start small, people, most Kenyans want to get into get-rich quick schemes. And poultry is not a get-rich quick scheme. It's a long-term investment. So you don't get your profits the first time you start. You have to, the cost of production, you have to, the money used, you have to recover it back. So that by the next time you keep the next batch, that's now when you'll start getting your profits from the second year to the third year. So I think people need to get education on poultry matters. We shift from indigenous. We head to at least hybrid. Recently, there has been development of this. We call them improved kienyeji. These are improved versions of the indigenous breed. This one grows very fast. Anyone can keep that because it matures in 5 months in terms of, if it's meat, within 3 months it will be ready. If it's eggs, by 5 months. But the problem is that farmers are not getting quality chicks because, everybody now is a breeder. Everybody hatches those chicks. So we need to come up, the government needs to come up with breeding farms whereby farmers will get pure breeding stock. Because if they get the poor quality chicks, obviously they won't grow to the required level. Yeah.
Can I ask you something as we wind up?
Yeah.
Is it true that we have some fake eggs from China?
Fake eggs from China? I haven't heard of that.
You haven't heard about that, eh?
I haven't heard
Go
about
and do
that.
your homework.
Okay.
We have to wind it up at this point. Thank you so much. But before I let you lose, I want to find out from you, I want you to face your camera and tell anyone who is aspiring, to venture into this business, what are the do's and what are the don'ts? In 1 minute.
Okay.
No, that's your camera.
Okay. Okay, before you start poultry production, first of all, you have to get information. Just seek help from a professional. You could get advice from an experienced farmer, but also you don't rely 100% on the farmer. You have to get someone who specializes in that, who can advise you. And then, of course, you have to have enough funds, because poultry keeping, especially the hybrid, is not an easy venture. And then you have to come up with a business plan. You have to write down all the materials you will need for the poultry production. And also you be patient, because it's a long-term investment. You can't recover it as soon as you start. So you have to be patient. And then, of course, you have to look out at ways of reducing the cost of production. In terms of feed, when now you increase the number of your birds, you can contact a poultry nutritionist, animal nutritionist, who will come up with a formula, and then you'll be able to make cheap feeds, because we understand feed is 70%. Cost of production of feed is 70%. If you're able to cut it down by 30%, there you go. You'll be able to get more.
Good.
Yeah.
Oguta, many thanks indeed for joining us, and I wish you all the best.
Okay, thank you.
Oguta Ngura is a poultry specialist joining us here in studio to help us understand how we can venture into the business of poultry farming and how we can grow this very important industry here in Kenya. Well, let's move on. Where the hiking of Namucha Ndeya Hills is largely considered a prep hike for individuals interested to climb Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro, owing to the tedious terrain to the peak of Ndeya Hills, 2,188 meters above sea level. Ndeya is characterized with rough and rocky terrain, an ideal choice for hikers craving for great expedition. This week on Magical Scenes, we feature the Namucha Ndeya hiking stretch in the Great Rift Valley region.
For nature adventurers aiming higher, Kenya is arguably the place to be. The country has a broad range of stonework cliffs and volcanic rock towers to an ultimate challenge. The Ndeya Hills is one of the secluded destinations considered prep hike for individuals interested in climbing Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro, the second highest and the uppermost summit in Africa, respectively. The Ndeya escarpment is endowed with arguably an amazing rough and rocky terrain. The Ndeya Hills are nestled in the Great Rift Valley on the far western end of semi-arid land amid serene environment. Nevertheless, before you hike to the Ndeya Hills in Kiambu County, you have to pass through the Namucha Hills in Kajiado County. We begin our hiking stretch from this point at Mahimahiu Narok Road, climbing up and down hills to the top of the escarpments. Here, amazing sceneries and breathtaking views of the Great Rift Valley will catch your attention the higher you go. All the same, walking to the top hill of Namucha could be a no joke. At some points, you could step on loose stones, making you to lose balance at the center of cactus plants.
For about 4 to 5 hours. So tired. Still we have this mountain Namuncha, then another one so that we
At noon, the sun could be directly overhead, posing a newest threat, but you have to keep on going. The terrain has short, perennial plants that grew amongst rocks, making it more difficult to get some shade forest. However, as you near the peak of Namuncha, the terrain eases with almost every hiker happy to have made it to the top. And this marks the halfway of the journey to the Ndeya Hill Summit, standing at an estimated elevation of 2,188 meters above sea level.
For summit Namuncha, we're heading to Ndeya. We've done around 8 kilometers. We are remaining around 122 kilometers. We're doing the whole trail 30 kilometers. So we are taking a short break before we resume.
To get to the Ndeya Hills, you will come across villages with herders. The higher you go, you are likely to spot herbivorous wildlife spectacle with varied types of plants, attractions that could at last make your hiking more exciting, having covered 30 kilometers with a score of roughly 10 hours. Irene Mchuma Odim, Magical Sense.
And still on tourism matters, where the cruise ship season has seen over 4,700 high-end tourists visit Kenya since October last year. Tourism stakeholders have expressed optimism over increased numbers during the new season that commences in September, riding on the intensive marketing and a new dedicated berth at the port of Mombasa.
Cruise vessels have called on the port of Mombasa since October 2017, bringing over 4,700 high-end tourists.
I think the confidence of the cruise tourists to the region has been growing, and which is a good sign for the tourism industry in this country. And we do believe that as we are also making progress, very, very commendable progress to finish the construction of the cruise reception terminal, by the time the new season starts coming from, again, towards the end of the year, this terminal definitely will be ready and more magnificent, and will play quite a crucial role to attract more of such vessels to this region.
As the season comes to an end next month, tourism stakeholders are banking on the new dedicated berth and marketing campaigns to boost numbers during the new season. This morning, MS Insignia en route from Zanzibar to Seychelles docked at the port of Mombasa, bringing in 680 passengers and 386 crew members.
For people in Germany told us, you have to go to Kenya. Once you have in your life, you have to go to Kenya. And now I'm here in Mombasa, and I'm so happy. Nobody knows what it means for me to be here.
Construction of the 450 million shillings cruise ship terminal that it has a state-of-the-art security features, an immigration center, hotel accommodation facilities and other amenities is at an advanced stage. Officials say the increased number of cruise ships is an indication that Mombasa is getting good publicity out there. Regina Manyara Gitao reporting for Business Insights.
Elsewhere, the Ministry of Energy is lobbying for additional funding in the 2018-2019 financial year budget to finance key projects. Energy Principal Secretary Joseph Njoroge says the 74 billion shillings allocated to the ministry in the budget estimate is insufficient to finalize ongoing projects. The key projects include electrification of slums and public facilities, as well as installation of additional transformers in constituencies.
The government has been carrying out various projects to enhance power connectivity across the country under the Last Mile Connectivity Project. Access to sustainable and reliable power supply is expected to play a key role in achieving the Big Four agenda.
We have taken them through our budget. You all know that energy is an enabler. It's very critical for even the Big Four in manufacturing, in housing, in universal health, and in food security and in nutrition. Energy is going to play a very critical enabling role to achieve the goals of those Big Four.
Energy Principal Secretary Joseph Njoroge, however, says the 74 billion shillings allocation to the energy sector in the 2018-2019 budget estimate is insufficient to finalize ongoing key projects.
Our budget is equally important so that we can be able to ensure that the programs that we will put to facilitate and catalyze the Big Four will come to be.
In this regard, the ministry is lobbying for additional cash. The key projects include electrification of slums, electrification of public facilities, and purchase of additional transformers for constituencies.
We are going to really fight to have additional funding to have the transformers. And there are so many other transformers which are not working. That we think we will be able to.
We have been allocated 74 billion Kenya shillings in all the parastatals, the ministry and all the programs that we have. And we are going to work to a very minimal additional so that we can also be appreciative of the limited resources that the government has and also concentrating on the Big Four.
The projects are expected to boost electricity access in the country by 2020. The Ministry of Energy is working on provision of cheaper power to all sectors of the economy to drive growth, as well as investing in the construction of more electricity substations and transmission lines to boost the availability of electricity and sustain demand.
Welcome back, and now let's talk matters sports. National cross-country team to the 5th edition of the Africa Cross-Country